What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Moguls. My name is Findlay-Shirras, and on today's show, we have Matt Fetick, founder and CEO of the Matt Fetick team, a top team serving the 5 counties in the Philadelphia region, powered by Keller Williams Realty. And he's the operating partner and majority owner for Keller Williams Prime Properties in London, England, UK. And that's kind of where I want to get started. So thank you, Matt, for being on the show, first of all.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And let's start with the differences in real estate between the U.S. and the U.K. because we have investors who are watching this, startups who are watching this, who serve either the U.K. or U.S. and want to expand into both. So if you were talking to technologies and service-based companies, what should we be keeping in mind are the differences between how real estate's done in those two geographies, and maybe the differences in the competitive landscape? So that we can, effectively serve the needs and wants of agents in both places.
So that's a tough one, Grant, because the industry is really completely different. It is not even similar. The only similarity is that a buyer wants to buy and a seller wants to sell. Get rid of that, and that's it. So just right off the bat, there is no licensing requirements. So anybody can participate in the sale of real estate. So you could literally be a taxi cab driver, and over here in the back that somebody has a property that they want to sell, and they can step up and represent you. So it is very, very challenging in that the barrier of entry doesn't exist. Therefore, everyone's kind of got their fingers in the pie.
Holy.
Yeah.
Is there an MLS in an association?
There's no MLS because there's very little cooperation among agents. There are some tools where agents will agree to what they call fee share or fee split, where they will make the property available to other agents. But in general, that's properties that haven't sold or maybe have gotten stagnant. Very, very few real estate or property companies there are interested in sharing fees. So there's very little cooperation among agents and therefore no real MLS.
Wow. And so if you owned, like, what do you think are the major needs and challenges in that market that some companies need to solve still, compared to like what stands out as the major needs and challenges in the U.S. market that needs to be solved still?
Yeah, I think it's changing. The landscape there is really changing, and we've been there 4.5 years. So we were there kind of right at the tail end of a great market. The market's been a real challenge for the last 2 years. But what we're seeing there is just a real change in the way the industry works because of the lack of cooperation and things like that. Because there's a lack of licensing requirements, the agents don't feel or have a fiduciary responsibility to their clients. So without that, it is kind of a bit of the Wild West. Also, there is very little commitment to, I don't want to say this the wrong way, to high-level customer service, because the agent that is working with buyers and sellers is not building a book of business for themselves. They're an employee of a company, and therefore they don't provide the same type of service that we provide here in the States. So I'm not saying they're bad, because it's not bad, right? They provide a valuable service, and there are certainly a lot of men and women who are true professionals. But the average, what they would call a negotiator, their average entry-level person right out of university, is kind of making the same amount of money they'd make in regular retail. Because they're not really writing contracts, they don't write contracts, they don't negotiate beyond trying to obtain an offer. There's not this commitment, So here in the States, in my sales business, we've built it a lot on referrals, past client referrals. We host a lot of client events where we are entertaining our clients and maintaining those relationships. Very little that happens in the residential market in the UK, because the entry level negotiator or agent in our language isn't building a book for themselves. So they don't particularly care. If you make the sale, great, they're going to get paid and move on, and that's about it. So it's just a very different approach.
And is that why Purple Bricks started out there and has more success there? And is that why there's maybe, when you look at the iBuyers and these new models and platforms of how to get real estate done, do you think they're just more likely to succeed in that market compared to US? Or do you think that market is waking up to how the US does it with that great service, and now they're wanting to actually do something similar in the other direction?
Yeah, so that's what we're finding. What we're finding now is it is both of those sides. One is the equivalent of what we would call the discount broker from the U.S., kind of a help you sell, assist to sell, the ones that have been, in and out of the market, who for a flat fee or a significantly lower commission want a full service. That's kind of the Purple Bricks, eMove. I forget what the other big one was there for a while. But what we've seen really is almost a consolidation. Several of the smaller, what they call them online brokerages, because or online agents, because they provide no physical high street office, and they kind of have this flat fee. Purple Bricks is certainly the biggest, and has had the most success, although we don't really know the success because there is no MLS, so there's no reported sold data. So we don't really know what their real success rate is from what they call an instruction, what we call a listing, from being instructed to sell the property to final closing or completion. Those numbers are not reported. So we don't really know what type of success. We also know there that the concept of an exclusive listing doesn't happen as often. So somebody might be listed with Purple Bricks, and then they may also, a couple of weeks later, if they're not getting traffic, may instruct a high street agent, and they didn't necessarily terminate their Purple Bricks contract. So they might be being marketed by multiple companies with multiple brands in multiple places in order to figure out who procures the buyer, and then that would be the commission they paid.
What I'm also hearing, and I want to get into it because that's kind of nitty gritty details, but when you're a company, because again, we got investors, we got companies who watch this, the language or the words that you're saying, like negotiator versus agent, instructions, right? It's so important for a company to know that language and to speak the language. When you were learning that market, did you find it was just easiest to Google stuff, or did you want to, or was it best to talk to someone?
Oh gosh, we failed many times, Grant. So we went in thinking that we had a great model that would be an alternative, right? I'm never arrogant enough to think that our model is the only model or the only option, right? I believe that we've got a great model that works for many people. And so we kind of went and said, it's time to bring this high-level customer service fiduciary where we're teaching and training our negotiators at a much higher level, where they're advocating for their clients, where they're, it would be odd in the UK where a negotiator would be giving out their cell phone and answering it at nights or weekends, or, so we talk to people, we're like, yeah, I'm standing in the UK and I'm negotiating deals in the US, and I get, eyes out of the back of their head looking at me like, that can wait till tomorrow morning. Like, what are you doing that for? Because we're a commission company, we want repeat business.
Yeah.
So I think what we found is that there's absolutely a desire for both. That there's a desire for higher level customer service where somebody comes in and provides staging advice and things. If you look on their portals, the equivalent of Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, their equivalents there are Rightmove and Zoopla. If you look at their equivalents, when you look at photos of instructions, our listings, when you look at them, you can see the photos are telling beds that aren't made and dishes stacked up in the sink and toilet seats open, all that stuff. Nobody, photos snapped from an iPhone without any quality behind them. Of course, that's not everywhere. But if you look through and start scrolling, you're like, are you kidding me? Like our customers would never tolerate that here. Well, that's what we found, is that there's a group of people there that say, great, we'd like to just dumb it down, get our property on the market, give us the bare minimum service that we can get access to the portals and get access to buyers, and we want to pay a flat or a lower fee. And we've also found that if we go out with a strong value proposition, we're going to help you stage your property at the highest and best price. We're going to really dig into what the value should be. We're going to take high quality professional photos with a photographer. We're going to do all these things. People are willing to pay for service, right? So not everybody, right? So we really found that there's a strong place for Purple Bricks mentality of just give me the basics. And we also are finding for folks that say, hey, look, you bring me service, help bring me the highest and best price, and we'll pay a fair and competitive commission.
Awesome. I mean, not many people understand the difference in the market, so that was great. That was really insightful. So I want to switch gears and talk about, you're with Keller Williams, and Keller Williams is making a big move with tech.
Yeah.
So let's first talk about, like, what's the new tech that you have experienced already and that you're already using that you're appreciating?
Oh, gosh. So I've really enjoyed a lot of different technology, and again, I haven't yet found a one-size-fits-all platform, although I'll tell you, we've been good users of Boomtown and have really enjoyed what they've created at Boomtown. And that's for sure 7-8 years ago when we partnered with them. We found their technology fantastic, and we got great service there. We're still clients of Boomtown. We have been working a lot with Ben Kinney and Rivety. And he is on fire, and I've found him as the independent tech source to be probably the most driven to drive new tools to that process, and is rolling out significant upgrades on a fast pace. So we're very excited to be converting a lot of our business over to that Rivety platform, it's just, I'm really impressed more and more every day.
Now, do you think, because I mean, Kelly, the cloud, all the stuff that Keller Williams is doing in-house, are they forcing adoption, or are you able to say, like, hey, I'm going to stick with this stuff over here and just use this stuff that's coming down the pipeline? Like, what's the situation like for Keller Williams agents?
Yeah, no, I think absolutely Keller Williams wants us to use what works best for us. There's absolutely no requirement. Certainly there'll be some requirements as far as, how we report transactions and things like that will, of course, through the franchise model, need to be done that way. I think Gary's smart enough to know that he's got to design and develop the tools that agents will want to use, not have to use. So I believe that, he's been hosting literally hundreds and thousands of agents over the last 18 months on a weekly basis to have masterminds. What are the tools? What are the features? What do you want to see? So I think Gary is very clear that he wants to have his platform driven by agents who are doing the work in the field daily. Mm-hmm. And I'm very impressed with what I see. So the nice thing about it is I believe not just Rivety, but I believe that there will be other platforms that will also have the ability to integrate with Kelly in the cloud. So I think Gary understands that we also have our commitments and our loyalties to other vendors, and so I think he understands that we will need a bridge into Kelly for those things. But he's made it very clear to us that there will be bridges and opportunities to take our existing technology and bring it in, so long as that vendor is meeting certain requirements.
Now there are, there are investors and companies who want to work a lot with KW people. Now, do you think there are some technologies or services that their products will be far superior, and those companies should almost think about pivoting or accounting for the fact that Keller Williams agents won't need you anymore because they really will be able to replace it? Like, when you think about the technologies and services that will be replaced by Keller Williams stuff, Kelly in the cloud, and all these stuff like that, what comes to mind?
Yeah, well, certainly, our tools from Keller Williams are proprietary to KW agents, and while we have a pretty dominant market force and market share, there's still a lot of agents out there that will need tools. So I don't think everyone's got to close them at home, but I would say if you're resting on your laurels with a product you developed X amount of years ago, and you aren't continuing to adapt that product so that it includes AI, so it includes voice recognition, so that it gets easier and easier. If you're not willing to invest to grow it, I'll give you an example, and I probably shot for saying it, but like, we were long-term users of Top Producer, which was such a fantastic program, and we still have a single account with Top Producer because we've got old data in there and stuff like that. But they just failed to innovate and do what needed to be done. And it's unfortunate because so many of what they had was light years ahead. The way the product worked 10, 12, 15 years ago, it was the gold standard. But now when I go on, when I log in and I'm looking at going compared to other things, like, guys, come on, you missed the mark here. You could have been doing, you had the audience and you had it there. So I think it's really critical. The other part about it is it all needs to talk together, because I think long gone are the days where I'm going to have an agreement of sale here and my transaction coordinator wants to email a PDF to the lender who's going to email a PDF to the title company. If those things don't bridge through some cooperative, those are the folks that are going to get left behind. Because I can tell you, if I've got to pay somebody to email a PDF to somebody, I'm getting rid of that technology, right? If it can integrate and send it, do I really have to pay somebody to scan this document and email it to this person? It all needs to work together so the consumer has access to opportunities where we can save costs and drive costs down, where we can be more efficient with our time. I think consumers hate the fact that they've got to send something to me and then send it to their lender and then send it here, right? We need a portal mentality where the consumer can step up and put what they need into the portal and then grant access out or things like that.
Are there any technologies or companies or changes that are happening in the industry that kind of scare you as a team leader and scare your agents, or at the very least make us go, we need to make some changes to take into account that this technology is coming, this company is going to have a market share, this change is happening, and it's a threat that if we don't innovate, we're kind of screwed. So what kind of stuff is on your mind in that arena?
So I'm all for it, right? So I live, sleep, and breathe on my iPhone, right? I can stand here right now. You were just mentioning, the light that you use for, recording videos. Like in 2 seconds, I can have that light ordered and delivered here tomorrow. Right? I'm taking off to the Keller Williams Family Reunion Convention for next week. I can order my flights here. I can get my boarding pass here. I can board my flight here. Right? I can get my hotel room key here at Marriott. Right? If we don't innovate and let the consumer have access to us in the way that they want to, right? So I look at technology as it needs to save time. It's not going to replace the agent, so I'm not afraid of that, right? Because technology can't walk into someone's house and go, if you don't get rid of that cat odor, if you don't update, your house is worth $300,000 today. If you want to update these two it needs that professional consultant.
Yeah.
You need a professional consultant in the negotiation phase. Certainly in a hot market where it's like, here's my number, it works. But somebody's got to work with the states. I spoke with an attorney this afternoon. They have 6, siblings who are fighting over this house. And what are we going to do? And they need a peacemaker to sit down and say, this is what it's worth, and this is how we're going to market it, and this is what we're going to do, right? So the agent has to get more than ever. The real estate agent is going to become the fiduciary in the transaction with their consulting, and technology is going to provide the wraparound customer service support, where we aren't doing that entry-level work, right? So I believe that's where we're headed, is that the agents who are licensed, who get to write contracts and deals, who are fiduciaries in the transaction, that we're going to take on more of that consulting role that we should be, consulting our clients to get the best price, consulting buyers on strategies to pay the least amount of money, helping people get the most value, helping people buy investment properties for their kids and their grandkids, like consultants on that. And what we won't be doing is emailing PDFs and sending out documents. All those things need to get streamlined and integrated. So I'm all about it. You're probably like, okay, that's enough. But
nope.
I want to see the industry provide the consumer with the experience that they want to have, and I want to power it with my 3,000 plus closing experience to make them. The average homeowner still only buys or sells 3 homes in their lifetime. And for most people, their wealth is held in their personal residence. And they need what they don't need is an agent who sells 3 homes a year, right? They don't need that. What they need is a professional who sells 24, 36, 48 homes a year, who can really consult them on the process can help walk them through what they need to do, and then use technology to provide the experience that they want.
So if I'm a new agent and I want to be a consultant, I want this knowledge, I want to be better at negotiations, say you're a new agent today, how would you develop, because that's knowledge, how do you develop that efficiently in the shortest period of time?
You got to sell a lot of houses, right? I tell any of the agents on my team, it's going to take 100 sales before you really figure out what it takes to keep a deal together, right? So I don't think that agents that sell a lot of houses are better people than agents that don't. What they've learned is how to keep a deal together, right? So the buyer wants to buy and the seller wants to sell. It's our job to bridge the gap. And what ends up happening is agents end up defending a position. Well, my buyer's not going to do this and my seller's not going to do that. And they make it a rivalry through the transaction. Instead of coming at it and saying, okay, this is the home you want, great. Let's do everything we can. Instead of taking adversarial positions, once we come to terms on price, that needs to go away. And then we got to chart the path forward. And my experience is, the agents kill deals, right? So the inexperienced agent walks into a basement that has cinder block foundation. And in our area, we kind of get this effervescence of calcium from the water outside, and it kind of looks like mold, right? So an inexperienced agent, and I've seen it, will go, oh my gosh, the basement's full of mold. You can't buy this house. It's like, no, those are calcium deposits, right? Now, of course, we don't want to take that responsibility on top of our head, but the response that you learn over time is, my experience, Mr. Buyer, is that's a simple calcium deposit. However, I recommend that you get a mold inspection. Make sure you get all your answers so you're confident, but you don't tank the deal by raising red flag. You give them their options. Would you like to get a mold inspection? Here's what I think it is. How can I help you move this? But I find that agents, inexperienced agents, tank deals because they make it about a personal opinion. Oh my gosh, this is mold. Oh my gosh, that furnace is 30 years old, and they stop deals from happening. And so what I tell agents when you join is you got to get 100 deals in here, but you've got to find enough cracked foundations, enough warped roofs that are leaking. You've got to find these problems and then solve them. And what we're doing is we're building a tool chest of solutions for buyers and sellers that want the deal to work, and they need us to come around them. Mm-hmm. So you got to go out and get a volume of sales. You don't know on your fourth sale that that's a calcium deposit. You don't know on your fourth sale that the mold that we see in the attic eaves is because the bathroom shower is venting into the attic. And if we vent it to the outside, that mold's going to go away, right? So it's not that we should become the expert in everything, but what we don't do is stop the deal. You say, hey, I think this is what it is, and let's get the expert in, instead of going, oh my gosh, the roof's got mold and the house is falling apart. And so that's what experience does, is you learn the anatomy of a house, the anatomy of a deal. You keep deals together.
Well, maybe you don't want to plug this, but I mean, this is one of the reasons why I think teams are on the rise, is because that's the fastest way to get that knowledge or be able to tap into that knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a new agent and you come on my team, you're going to do 24 deals in your first year.
Yeah.
Right?
That's awesome.
We want them doing a minimum of 2 deals a month.
It's a big claim, man. That's an irresistible offer.
Yeah. I mean, that's what our expectation is. If you're not driven to do that, we're not the right team for you, because it's not for bragging rights. So you don't see me waving my numbers around. That's not who I am. It's because it gives us the experience to solve problems so that our clients get their needs met, right? It's not about anything else. It's about I don't think I'm the best person in the world, right? What I think is I have figured out how to keep deals together, how to talk to people, how to find resources. Those are things. I'll FaceTime at a house with a plumber and say, hey, what do you think about this? Instead of clamping the deal down. And what I think happens, because the barrier of entry is so low, right, 60-hour class, an agent walks in and they're afraid and they don't know what to do, so they tank and they're like, oh my gosh, you're right, I have no idea, let's go find a different house. Yeah. And so what I hope happens with technology, and for the folks that are innovating, that what they're doing is creating a platform where all the service providers can interact together, where the consumer can be at the center of the transaction, and their expert agent, their expert mortgage person, their expert home inspector can collaborate to make to make the buying and selling process as rich as it can be.
Well, that's an amazing segue into when you think about the future of the industry and the stuff that will help you as a team and your agents perform better, as well as provide a better service to the consumer. What are some of the technologies you're excited about that maybe aren't even there quite yet, but you know it's going to come and you're really excited for it?
Yeah. So I really think that there's so many other pieces of technology in other industries that we're going to see. Right? We're still writing physical deposit checks, right? That an agent's dropping off at our office that we're sending to the bookkeeper, and right, I expect to see some electronic transaction opportunities where we can snap a photo and electronically get that earnest money deposit attached to the file. I'm excited to see technology out there to allow buyers to. This is always a little bit schedule showings for homes. The problem is I do think we have an obligation both to sellers to make sure that they're a qualified buyer that's going in their home, and for the safety of the agent that's going to meet them, that we've pre-screened them for security purposes and things like that. So I would love to see a tool where, because we know that when we say to a buyer, hey, we want you to get pre-approved, or we want your story, they're like, I just want to see the house. Like, just get me in the house. And I've been that way. I've been on vacation and said, I'm interested in buying a house here at the beach. And you call an agent like, well, we want to sit down and do a buyer's consultation. I'm like, but if I don't like this house, I'm not buying. So how do I, it's chicken or egg.
Yeah.
So I would love to see an opportunity where a buyer can kind of get pre-screened for security reasons and things like that, so that they really want to see a home without doing all those other things, that we can quickly do that, right? We've validated their identification. We're happy to meet them somewhere. Because right now people call and we stop what we're doing and we run out to the house, and you don't have no idea who you're meeting. So,
what about, how do you think VR is going to play into that? I mean, like seeing the home, do you think VR will get to a point where you can put it on the goggles and that experience will be good enough for you to have that 2-minute instant gut where it's like, yes, no, and then from there, distill it down to the ones that you actually want to see in person?
So my personal opinion is, and I'm sure I'm going to tick off a bunch of your is no. Quite frankly, I think that tools that do like 3D photos and putting 50 photos out there and things, I think actually does the seller a disservice. Now, we use them, by the way. Yeah. But does the seller a disservice, because I think buyers rule out homes faster that maybe would have worked for them, because they think they figured it all out online, and then they never go and see the house, and the house might have worked for them. So I actually believe that we should provide less VR, less 3D, get down to a few basic photos, not because of anything other than I think the buyers rule things out. And let me give you an example. The first house that I bought, I said to my agent when I bought it, I don't want a ranch house and I don't want a neighborhood. I want a little bit of open, expansive space. I don't want to be right up on my neighbors, and I don't want a ranch house. And so we were out looking, couldn't find anything. She finally says, hey, let's go see this one house. So we pull it in, and we're pulling into the community, and I'm like, Joyce, I said no neighborhoods. And then we pulled up the house, and it was a ranch house. And I'm like, come on now. And she said, just trust me, let's go inside. We walked inside, and it ended up being a really modern ranch house. And the back stepped out, and there were floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over 100 acres of open space. And so it had exactly what I wanted feel-wise. Right? So I'm standing in this living room, I'm like, this view's spectacular. I feel like I'm in the middle of 80 acres. And the floor plan was awesome, and I ended up buying it, right? But if I had looked at the photos online, I never would have gone into that house. And so I think that we can provide too much information that buyers use that doesn't add to the experience, and we keep people from really, I'm absolutely convinced that buyers decide to buy within the first 30 seconds of walking in the door. They walk in the door and it feels like home, and they can see their stuff, and they can't experience that online. And the more we put that stuff online, the less homes they see, which is kind of nice as the agent, but they also rule out homes that might have worked.
Okay, interesting. Because I mean, the flip side is now they get to see more homes than they maybe did way back in the day, and so it's like you got to rule out somehow. So say the future existed where we don't have VR and 3D, but there's all this now opportunity for me to look at so many places. What is the best efficient process for me to actually rule out stuff quickly?
I truly I truly think if you have a sit down conversation with a quality agent and really go through this needs analysis and your must have list, good agents that are active in the market will be able to, you can ask me to see any home you want to, and I'll show it to you. I guarantee you, if you come to my community and you say, Matt, this is what I'm looking for and this is what I want to feel, if I'm a great active agent in the market, I'm going to find the house before you do. Because I know it. Like once I understand who you are and what you want, I know that that's 123 Main Street. I can't tell you how many times we've shown buyers 30, 40 houses, and all of a sudden I'm like, the right house comes on. I call them, guys, I just saw it. It just popped up, and that's the one they buy, right? So that's the other part of it is an active agent who's out showing homes every day and really knows their inventory and what's available, and then does a great needs analysis. What's important? What do you want your kitchen to feel like? They're out touring homes, and I'm walking the house and going, oh my gosh, this is good for John and Susie Smith. This house is good for so-and-so. And so you start to know it. That's why I feel there's so much value in what the agent does. I am not saying to get rid of Matterport type 3D things. They add value. What I'm saying is that sometimes the other extreme of that is I think people rule out homes and don't call an agent until they find what they think they like online and what they wanted. So we might have already seen it and might already know.
No, it's the you don't know what you don't know kind of thing. That's a good point. And that really is, when you think about if technology does more things for the agent, it's like, great, that allows the agent to focus on the one-on-one, the get to know you portion of the whole process. And then the very cool. Okay. So say, say there's tech companies out there, service providers. One of the things that they struggle with is, hey, I really feel like I solve a problem for teams or for brokerages, and I want to get in the door. I want to do business with them. If you were the tech company and you wanted to do business with the Matt Fetick team, what would be your approach? What would be your recommendations for these?
Yeah, so I'm generally always open to hearing, right? So I'm interested in knowing what's out there. I would say at this point in my career, you'd have to be better than the latest and greatest CRM or something. Like, I want to see, send me an email, send me a little demo, and a little teaser that says, this is how we're going to manage your deposit money. This is how we're going to take this off. This is how we're going to help you schedule your showings better. Show me something that solves a problem that I don't already have, because the race to the CRM thing is kind of over, right? And so I want to see those value-added snippets. But if you can send me a little snippet, I'll look at it. I'm happy to do it. I want to do it. I also think that showing up at different events, whether it's a Keller Williams convention, whether it's an Inman Connect, or things like that, and being willing to put yourself out there. I'll tell you the ones that there were a lot of. You were at Inman. There were a lot of things there. The only vendors that I took time to go and see were the ones that personally called me, dropped me a handwritten note or a phone, an email before it, and said, "I see that you're a registered attendee. This tool might work for you. This is what it does. What day can I meet you?" Right. So, I'm willing to meet with folks. What I want to do is reach out, do a personal invitation, and be where I'm going to be.
Very cool. Okay. Now, say you are an investor and you want to start putting some money into the space because this is a winning technology, this is a winning company. What comes to mind?
What tool is needed?
Yeah, like what technologies are you bullish on, or what companies you think are up and coming that you would, if you were an investor, would want to put money in?
Gosh, I don't know. I still feel like there's a better solution for property search. I feel like Zillow, I think, feels that they excuse me, kind of had their finger on that button, but it feels like it's kind of old and animal. Like it doesn't feel any new on the consumer side than what it was 5 years ago. So I think there are better tools and resources out there for the consumer. And then the consumer, you need to be able to link the consumer back to the agent. So I think if you develop tools, whether it's a different search tool or those types of things, that you want to provide the consumer solution and the agent solution simultaneously, and then figure out a way to make it certainly, the how to monetize it. But I don't need another CRM, right? So and I know I've said it 4 times, what I'm saying, if you figure out what the consumer needs and then how the agent can support it, right? What gets Zillow and those companies in trouble is when they move past a marketing company and things like that, so they start playing in the agent space, right? We're gonna start listing our own home, we're gonna start being an iBuyer, we're gonna start doing those things. As soon as they did all that, I stopped my ad spend, right? The consumers that go there, that's fine. It doesn't bother me, but I'm not going to feed the coffers, right? So I'm not interested in spending money as an agent, whether it's monetized by ads or things like that, in someone who's going to get into my space. So if you want to stay as a tech company, a marketing company, do that. If you're going to compete as an agent, I'm not spending a dime.
Very cool. Now, do you see there's a lot of money flowing into certain areas you think are going to be losers? That you're looking at this going like, what are people thinking? That might be insightful, again, from the agent, broker, team leader's perspective.
Gosh, I have to be honest with you. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But again, I feel like there's so much of it is a new skin on the same old, same old. And the platform, it needs to be more platform driven instead of app driven, right? So how do I connect mortgage and title and home inspector and bring all those people under one tool, right? And have everybody plug into it. So to me, the space that's underutilized is the platform space. The folks that are out there reinventing, again, kind of the same old with a new skin on it, doesn't thrill me, and it's not going to catch my attention.
This has been awesome. I appreciate the insight. How can people get in touch with you, whether they're an agent who wants to join the team or someone who wants to learn from you and get your service?
Sure, feel free to email me. It's Matt, M-A-T-T, at Fetick Team, F-E-T-I-C-K, fetickteam.com, or give me a call. I'm always happy to schedule time to talk with folks and network and learn more from other people.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for being on the show. And as always, everyone, if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube show. Click that little bell icon if you're on your mobile phone, or subscribe to the podcast. You can learn more from real estate moguls like Matt and be great at real estate.